Okay, we are ready to get started. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. This is the City Council regular meeting. And I am calling the meeting to order. Notice is hereby given to the members of the City Council and the general public that at this regular meeting, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aslan.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember House.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Sweet. Here.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand.
Councilmember Sweet.
I will do the mission statement. The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Councilmember House, our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. Now we're down to public participation. Public participation occurs twice on the agenda, now and at the end, and it enables the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments related to items that are on the agenda will be taken at the time that that item is discussed. If you wish to address the council at tonight's meeting, please complete a comment card and submit it to the recording clerk as soon as possible. Your name will be called when it's your turn to speak, and you may address the council up to 3 times throughout the meeting, including comments made during public participation. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and council is unable to respond to you during public participation. So first we have Nadine Hart.
Good afternoon, council members and Mayor Daggett. So I am speaking regarding some of the issues and struggles as a housing choice voucher holder. I am one of many, but the one who's going to keep coming forth. So one thing that I have experienced is the cost of the first month's rent. When I moved, I had weeks from homelessness, and I had to come up with $4,000 in cash. Where if you're in this program, you can only have so much in your bank account anyway, and waiting in hopes of last month's deposit, you really have to have the money. And my deposit 5 years ago was 1/3 of what the new deposit was. So how do we help families in this housing market with these vouchers? Where are they supposed to get the money? Especially when there's always a delay of inspection from one place to another. And in my case, I did reach out repeatedly to my case manager for help, and the lack of response or resources indicated to me that it is not within the duties of the job for the housing authority case manager I have. People told me there's resources to help with these funds, but who, where do I go? It's not outlined clearly. So you're basically left standing in front of Walmart with a sign, which is what I thought I would have to do. $4,000 cash is a lot for anybody to make these transitions. So what do you do to come up with a fair market rent in this current situation? Plus, in addition, when we are paying our rents, the housing authority counts gross versus net income. Gross is not demonstrative of what a person brings in. So if I make $100 and I net 70, 1/3 of my rent out of the 100 is about $33.33. From that net, I only have about $36 to spend on gas, and the increase in utility, which has gone down for an allowance. So we may get more for our voucher, but we're getting less for electricity, which goes up for everybody, internet, cellular things, which are no longer options in our current society. Short-term rentals. When I had the dryer installed, I was 1 out of 7 houses. The first 7 were short-term rentals. This is affecting our ability to rent houses. If we could figure out a way to maybe rotate these out, give financial incentives, instead of giving $5 million to a new developer, taking that money to existing housing and providing that to local landlords to rent to people like me, that in turn will help future market possibilities for other people. A lot better this time.
Thank you, Nadine. Jonathan Otero.
Hello, Council. My name is Johnny. Am I speaking too loud? My name is Johnny Otero, and I'm a proud aspiring educator. I come today in solidarity with my students and also unsheltered relatives who have been impacted by this council for years, for decades. Earlier we have read that the mission of the city of Flagstaff is to protect and ensure the equality life for all. So why? Why is sleep being criminalized in this sacred land? Why is being unsheltered criminalized on this sacred land? Why put our most vulnerable in harm's way, especially during the winter? Just last year, 4 reported unsheltered relatives lost their life here in this city due to this council's negligence, right? With liminal closing down and the camping ordinance continuing, where our unsheltered relatives have nowhere to go. And I also ask, why give a land acknowledgement when you all will continue to oppress and criminalize unsheltered relatives? I speak on this as an aspiring educator. I'm a student, I am a teacher, and most of all, I am human, and I see what is happening to my students, and I want change to happen, and I know change can happen with this council in front of me. Further on in the agenda, we're going to be talking about the renaming of the peaks. Very good work. Let this work continue. Let this work continue with our unsheltered relatives. Let this work continue with our undocumented students on campus at NAU. Now that Prop 308 is passed, we're going to have more dreamers, more undocumented students. We need a sanctuary city. We need a sanctuary campus. And I just thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving down to November work anniversaries.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Joanne Keene, Deputy City Manager, and I'm here tonight covering for Shannon Anderson to celebrate our November work anniversaries. Pull up the presentation. So we're going to start today by celebrating our 1-year anniversaries for employees. We have 2 slides, and I will not read the names, but I will scroll through them. We have many different departments represented and many different individuals who, again, have been with the city for 1 year. Moving forward, I'd like to talk about Brian Hawk, who is celebrating a 5-year anniversary, and Brian is a library supervisor. Ed Schenk, I think many of us know Ed, is celebrating a 5-year anniversary, and Ed is our Water Services Section Director for Stormwater. Jennifer Moore, who is a Senior Administrative Specialist in our Human Resources Department, and you'll see her when you walk in to our HR department, and she's right up front. Jenny Lynn is a collections specialist in our management services division, and she is celebrating her 15-year anniversary with the city. As is Kyle Nelson, who's a water services operator. And last but not least, I'd like to recognize Ron Canwisher, who is retiring as an assistant city attorney. And I'd like to turn it over to Sterling Solomon, who's going to give some remarks about Ron.
Thank you, Joanne. Mayor and Council, Sterling Solomon, your city attorney. Last month, we bid farewell to Ron Canwisher as he retired. He started here at the city on October 13th, 2003. And retired on October 13th, 2023, his 20-year anniversary. Ron came to us from the IT world. He was somebody that had a tremendous amount of compassion for those with whom he worked in the prosecution section. He used very often what we refer to as a diversion agreement for somebody with anger management issues. He would send them to an anger management course, and once they complied, the charges could be dismissed. He used these tools very effectively to help many of the members of our community, whether it was a crime involving domestic violence or a crime involving substance. Ron was just very good at what he did, and we were very sorry to see him go. Ron is kind of the strong, quiet, silent type, therefore we don't have a picture or a long description written up of him here, but he is viewing online, and I want to thank you, Ron, for the tremendous amount of effort and time you put in here at the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Sterling, and thank you, Ron.
Just congratulations to everybody celebrating their anniversaries, and congratulations to Ron on his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving down to council liaison reports. I was going to pick whoever made eye contact with me first, but I'll go with Councilmember House.
I knew you were going to pick whoever made eye contact with you first, and I didn't, and I still got picked. So last week I was at a housing policy conference, and that made me miss the Commission on Diversity Awareness meeting, so my apologies to that team. But I did have a chance to watch the recording and saw that they had a robust discussion, including a presentation by the Associate Vice Provost for Global Affairs at NAU, Cesar Flores. They had updates on the Native American Heritage Month flag that was developed by the Indigenous Commission and now flies outside of the city of Flagstaff for this month. I'm going to be reaching out to newly elected Chair Carolyn Kidd, congratulations to her, regarding a presentation she gave last month on the proposed updates for the flag for Black History Month. She did a wonderful presentation with many options, and we were going to follow up on that, but I still need to get a copy of that presentation so that we can move forward on that. But hopefully we'll have a proposal to put forward before we move into that discussion for 2024. The Commission also is continuing to seek guidance and updates on the previously introduced equitable restroom signage request. So I know that they are still awaiting some updates on that, but other than that, a lot of good information out of that Commission this month. Thank you.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I will give you eye contact. You can call on me. Last week, I attended the Mountain Lion Board meeting, and we discussed the 2024-2025 legislative priorities. We updated the 12 to 18-month work plan and received a pretty great update on the battery electric bus pilot. A lot of information in that I wasn't expecting, so a good conversation. And I also attended the Water Commission meeting, got a brief update on the water rate study that we're going through right now. Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything to report this week. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Sure, I'll just mention briefly, there was a Tourism Commission meeting. Agenda was very typical, full of great reports from the Discover Flagstaff team. One thing that really stuck out to me is the amount of international travel that's going on by our team members and our staff in order to promote Flagstaff. I just think that's really cool. Real quickly, I attended the Cosmic Ray Tunnel at the Sheep Crossing Trail dedication ceremony. That was a lot of fun. It was a very spirited and joyful affair, and it's a great mural. Go check it out. And also, just to mention really briefly, I had a promising meeting with the Dark Sky Coalition. There's some conversations going on about formalizing their structure a little bit more into something that's similar to what I do with our Coconino Plateau Water Advisory Partnership, that might give elected officials here at the city and at the county and in other communities a chance to engage and be involved in that. So those talks are ongoing. I think would be a really nice development for that group and for the sustainability of their efforts over time and expanding dark skies regionally. So I think I'll leave it there. One other thing I might as well mention is the interpretive display that was unveiled at the the Flagstaff Visitor Center. Thank you, Councilmember Sweet. Really neat touchscreen display with lots of interactive tools and materials and videos. And again, just a festive, fun morning engagement. A lot of nice red carpet ribbon cutting affairs this past week.
Councilmember Harris.
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I too was at the Mountain Line Board meeting last week, and we also had a presentation to discuss the finalized 12 to 18 month work plan to capture some of the tasks that were supported by the strategic plan we came up with not too long ago. Some of which is CDL training and testing facility, completion of a mobility study to identify new and creative transit options, and we've been working with the first responders to plan for a safe zero emissions bus transition, and then also talk about discussions about a transit tax, if it should be on 2024's ballot. But most importantly, and the biggest exciting news was Mountain Line was awarded $12.4 million grant money, federal money, for build out of solar on top of the roof of the new administration building at the Downtown Connection Center, and the full design and construction of phase 2 of the Downtown Connection Center, where the buses stage in the civic space. So we're really excited about receiving that and moving forward with that development.
Thank you. Nothing from me this evening. So we will move on to item number 7, which is liquor license public hearings. How many of these do we have? Just the one? No, we have a couple. But first, I'm going to open the public hearing. And please, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Nick Almendares. I'm a sergeant with the Flagstaff Police Department. Before you to present 2 liquor licenses. The first is for Over Easy. It is a Series 12 restaurant liquor license and located at 501 East Piccadilly, Building 101, Suite 70. The application was filed by Jeffrey Miller, the agent, Jared Field, the controlling person, Ryan Field, controlling person, and Jacob White, also controlling person, Christopher Brickley, who was a premise manager. In our investigations, no derogatory records on the applicants were discovered, and there were no current or historical liquor violations for the business. We found evidence the applicants had taken the mandatory liquor license training, and a representative of the business was invited to answer any questions and is available virtually.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant or our sergeant here? And if not, I will take a motion to forward the application to the state.
Actually, Mayor, if you could ask if there's any public comment,
There's no,
and then close.
is there any public comment? No, there is no public comment.
and
Thank
then
you.
Close the public hearing.
And now I will close the public hearing. I feel like we're in Star Wars or something. So I will take a motion to forward the application.
Mayor, I'll move to forward the application to the state with a recommendation for approval for Over Easy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then the, Councilmember McCarthy, Vice Mayor is stepping in for you in the pun department. All right, the second liquor license application.
Okay, the second liquor license is for the Sunnyside Chevron. This is a Series 9 bar liquor license and located at 2205 North 4th Street. Application was filed by Anthony Colston, the agent and controlling person, Gregory McCabe, the controlling person. In my investigation, I discovered no derogatory records on the applicants and no current or historical liquor violations on the business. Found no evidence the applicants, or I found evidence the applicants had taken the mandatory liquor license training. And as well, a representative of the business was invited and is available virtually if needed.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of the applicant? All right. Do I have a motion to forward the application?
Actually, Mayor, my apologies.
That I close the public hearing prematurely?
Yeah, if you could just open and ask if there's any public comment, and then
I'd like to
close
open the
before we
public hearing now. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to move to forward the application to the state with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're moving down to the consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the City Council to be routine. Unless a member of the City Council expresses a desire at this meeting to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion, the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion approving the recommendations listed on the agenda. Unless otherwise indicated, expenditures approved by the Council are budgeted items. Council, is there any item that you would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, so then I will take a motion to approve items 8A and B under the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving down to routine items. 9A, consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2023-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff ratifying the grant and reservation of easements and formally accepting dedications and donations of easements of real property interests. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I'm Carmen Pryor, the Real Estate Specialist in Community Development, and this afternoon I'm before you for the second read of Ordinance 2023-25. After the first read, clerical errors were noticed and are corrected to reflect on the second read of Ordinance 2023-25. Thank you. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Council? I will entertain a motion. I'm entertaining all of that to read ordinance number 2023-25 by title only for the final time.
Mayor, I'd like to move to read ordinance number 2023-25 by title only for the final time.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mayor, you certainly are entertaining. I will second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff ratifying the grant and reservation of easements and formally accepting dedications and donations of easements and real property interests, providing for severability authority for clerical corrections and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're down to public hearing items. And let's see, we have A, B, and C that are the same, essentially in the same block, correct? So we could take public comment on all three of these?
Sure.
At once, okay, thank you. So I am going to take 10A, B, and C together, and we will take public comment on all of those at once. And please, go ahead.
Mayor, we'll just need to open the public hearing. I didn't hear it. I'm very sorry. Now I'm in big trouble.
Hi. Tiffany Antal, Zoning Code Manager. Tonight I am here to present 3 zoning code text amendments. I was here just a couple weeks ago having a work session with you all. I had 4 at that time, but I've only got 3 today. The first one up is the planned residential development. We had a very good conversation at Planning and Zoning Commission. This is much louder than it normally is. We had a great conversation at Planning and Zoning Commission at their public hearing. When going through this text amendment, they had actually asked that I look at that I'd actually look at sort of categorizing or separating the point structure out on the particular design elements that we'll be now requiring with the planned residential development, which I'll get to here in a minute. After a good conversation, we realized that that probably wasn't the best alternative. They approved and recommended approval to you all based on the original text amendment, and they were supportive of this amendment moving forward. With that, we've also taken this amendment to the Housing Commission as well. Generally good feedback from the Housing Commission, so feel good about this moving forward. I do have one developer right now I'm a little concerned with, but I'm trying to talk them through. I've worked several of their projects through this code amendment to try to show them. I just need a minute of their time, which I'm hoping to get here real soon, and we'll get them set on the straight page. So this amendment basically changes our existing planned residential development standards. Right now, there are certain types of development that are required to use these standards. This is going to change that. This is 100% an incentive process at this point in time, so you can either choose to use your underlying zoning standards. If you want to do, say, a single-family home in the MR or the HR, you can use your underlying zoning standards. The PRD will now primarily be applied to the new subdivisions, which is basically allowing a developer to create smaller lots, different lot coverages, but they'll be applied to a whole neighborhood in whole rather than piecemeal potentially throughout a neighborhood. So that's the big primary change you're seeing. In addition, as we've worked through this process, we talked about the fact that civic space was this additional 5% on top of 15% open space when you use the PRD, and that residential developments were now having to provide 20% in addition to also doing resource protection as well, which can make it tough to hit some of the minimum densities when we're subdividing land. So we're moving forward with changing civic space to only applying to commercial development. It'll no longer apply to residential, but that 15% will still be there. We do modify the use tables, both the residential and the commercial use tables. There's some general cleanup work that's happening in these tables. Basically, anything that gets listed a use permit and a permitted use in the same line gets broken out into 2 lines. This will make it much clearer for the public as well as for staff. It also takes out that PRD, makes it the same. Right now, our residential and our commercial tables don't match how we list PRD. PRD in the residential tables is listed in the permitted or use permit, but then in the commercial zones, it's listed as a use. So just some general overall cleanup in addition to this. Again, I gave you an example of what this looks like when we apply it inside of an existing neighborhood, and you can see that the development standards are really different. This is going to help us keep uniformity for development in existing neighborhoods. Again, example, and so again, cleaning up all of these different standards, making it really clear that one single family unit or accessory dwelling unit is allowed per lot or parcel unless approved with the PRD. So any place where PRD was referenced, we change it just to make the code very clear and consistent. Again, changing common space, changing those commercial use provisions. We're also getting rid of cluster dwelling, which is an alternative to planned residential development, only nobody uses it because it's far more restrictive. So yay, we get to take something out of the zoning code, and I'm a little excited about that. So let's get into what those design requirements are. These are really incentives, but a lot of them are based off of, because our planned residential development was attached to our form-based code standards, they're really trying to reflect back on what those standards were and what we were trying to accomplish in that traditional neighborhood design element. In addition, because we are working through carbon neutrality, we are working with a housing crisis, there are additional incentives applied that go above and beyond just those traditional neighborhood design standards that try to encourage and be more inclusive in terms of housing and carbon neutrality. So there are incentives built in if a project goes 100% electric. There are incentives built in if a project is 100% affordable. On the housing side, we add in some incentives about not dysregulating ADUs. So we have some subdivisions, for example, through their CCNRs that don't allow accessory dwelling units. This would give you a point towards planned residential developments. If you commit to that, it will give you some points if you commit to actually including ADUs within your subdivision. This will give you points if you don't just provide single family within a subdivision, that you really get to that mixed use that we're looking for, that gentle density of duplexes mixed with single family, mixed with fourplexes, the way things used to be, and can be very beneficial to a lot of different residents within our community. So these are those elements. Those design elements, some of them are more traditional design elements, trying to encourage the use of alleys, trying to get to a grid street network, but also trying to rate them in a way where we're flexible enough, right? We know that Flagstaff isn't flat. We know that we have lots of things to work around, and our goal isn't to make it impossible to do these things. Our goal is to get as close to achieving them as possible. And with that, these are the required findings that need to be met. So the first is about consistency with the general plan, and I listed you probably 10 different policies. These policies, the design elements of the PRD, are taken directly from these policies. So consider a variety of housing types. Done. We've done that. Encourage development to be clustered in appropriate locations. That's what the PRD does. So in a lot of ways, this is the one text amendment I think I've seen or done that is really a true reflection of our regional plan and the goals and policies contained in it. Next step is that the amendment is not anticipated to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, or welfare. Again, this is now a completely 100% incentive tool. It is chosen by the developer. They are no longer required to use this tool. And last up, the proposed amendment is internally consistent. A lot of work was done. I hope at the end of the day it comes out perfect when I see it on the other side. If it's not, I'll be back to fix something. But the goal here was to try to make everything as internally consistent as possible. And with that, staff recommends and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that, that this amendment be approved. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. And you just said that Planning and Zoning approved all of them.
Yes.
Which was Councilmember McCarthy's question. Council, do you have any questions for staff or comments?
Oh, Mayor, this is Jim McCarthy. I guess I understand that P&Z approved it, but was it a unanimous vote or a 4-3 vote or whatever?
I didn't have, it was unanimous of all that were present, and I believe it was 5-0.
Tiffany, thank you. And Mayor, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, and I don't see any public comment on any of these items.
Do you want me to cover the last two really quickly?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
would you please?
I did do them as separate presentations, I apologize. But just really quickly, the next step is meeting facilities. And we are creating two different definitions here. Right now, meeting facilities is one definition. It basically is combining a commercial and a non-commercial use together, which can be a little frustrating and confusing for all that work on the code. This is an issue that came up when we were working on the hospital and they were looking at a convention center, and we found that we had no use in the code to include a convention center, and we thought that was awkward and weird. So this amendment is intended purpose is to really clarify the difference between what is really a neighborhood facility and what is really a commercial facility. So I will, again, the whole point of these policies support the protection of neighborhoods, which is a good goal to have here and will help us separate the difference between those commercial and neighborhood facilities. Again, not anticipated to be detrimental to the public interest, and again, internally consistent. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval, and I have one last one for you, and that is changing the manufactured home lot standards. I think I probably got the most amount of positive feedback on this particular amendment, which is great. I thought it was tiny and small and irrelevant, but got lots of great feedback. So the zoning code currently requires a minimum parcel size of 5 acres in the MH zone, when clearly we have subdivisions where lots are not 5 acres. So we're going back to what our standards were under the land development code. I think this was honestly just an error from way back when, but will make it easier to put infill in some of these existing manufactured home lot zoned areas. So that's the full intention. In addition, we're removing that 5 acre minimum for a manufactured home park, which is where that 5 acres comes from, because our most recent one was actually constructed on a 2.5 acre park, so it's very feasible. Density is just set by your number of units, the same as a multifamily home project would be. And again, policies supporting housing and infill from our regional plan, not anticipated to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, or convenience, and internally consistent as well. And Commission did recommend approval of that one as well. If you have any questions on any of those.
Why don't you go ahead and do D?
D is actually not mine.
Oh, okay. So I was correct the first time. A, B, and C. Any questions, council? Comments? Still no public comment. All right. So I will entertain a motion to read resolution number 2023-57 by title only.
Sorry, Mayor, because we are doing A, B, and C as a block, we need to close the public hearing on that before we have the motion, and then we'll open a public hearing for D separately. Public comment, close, and then.
Thank you.
You bet.
Seeing no public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing on items A, B, and C, and will entertain a motion to read resolution number 2023-57 by title only.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-22-00223-Planned Residential Development.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to read ordinance number 2023-28 by title only for the first time?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff Zoning Code Title 10 Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-22-00223-Planned Residential Development, providing for penalties, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Now can I get a motion to read resolution number 2023-54 by title only?
Mayor, I'll move to approve or to read resolution number 2023-54 by title only.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-23-00135-Meeting Facilities, Neighborhood, and Regional.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to read ordinance number 2023-26 by title only for the first time?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 10 Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-23-00135-Meeting Facilities, Neighborhood, and Regional, providing for penalties, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to read resolution number 2023-56 by title only?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-23-00137-Manufactured Home MH Zone Lot Development Standards.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to read ordinance number 2023-27 by title only for the first time?
So moved that.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 10 Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-23-00137-Manufactured Home MH Zone Lot Development Standards, providing for penalties, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Now I'm opening the public hearing on item number D, consideration and adoption of resolution number 2023-58 and ordinance number 2023-29. Please.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Good evening. Bethan Hang. I'm one of the planners with the City of Flagstaff. Tonight, the item before you for the first read, public hearing, is the open space terminology text amendment. With that, we'll dive into the presentation. So very quickly, an overview of why you're seeing this text amendment tonight. So currently within the City of Flagstaff zoning code, we have three terms that refer to open space. So those three terms are open space, common open space, and private open space. Now here's where the issue lies. Within the Flagstaff zoning code, those three terms are used interchangeably as open space. And this is a potential cause for confusion and has been a potential cause for confusion for planners as well as partners, as well as other people working with the Flagstaff zoning code, because each of those three terms mean very different things. common open space and private open space are development standards, while open space refers to what we usually think of when we think of open space. So tonight, this open space terminology text amendment is proposing two things. We're going to modify existing terminology, and we're tweaking the definitions a little bit too, and I'll go into more detail in the next slide. But firstly, common open space is going to be changing to common space, and then private open space is going to be changing to private space. Once those two terms have been adjusted, and then as I've mentioned previously, in the next slide I'll go into how the definitions are being tweaked. We'll go into the Flagstaff zoning code and update the terminology throughout. So as promised, here on the next slide is how we're tweaking those two definitions. So common open space is changing to common space, and then private open space is changing to private space. And then I have here bolded in yellow the tweaks that we're adding to the two definitions. So again, these two definitions are development standards, and the tweaks there clarify that they are development standards. So before you is a table that breaks down each of the three current definitions. How it's broken down, I will clarify, is from the current definitions. It's not pulling from the new definition that we're posing. So with that, in terms of area specification, open space refers to undeveloped space or area. And then common open space is open space within a development, and private open space is open space with each unit. Again, development standards. The purpose for open space is to maintain or enhance the conservation of natural or scenic resources. Again, what we typically think of when we refer to open space. And then common open space is for the use and enjoyment of all owners and occupants within a development, and private open space is the open space that's designated for personal use, and it goes on to list in the definition examples of that. Now, in terms of purview, open space falls to pros, and then common open space and private open space being development standard, that falls to planning and zoning. So on the next few slides, I have some visual examples of each of the three terms, just to familiarize you as council on how these terms differ. Again, these definitions on screen are pulling from the current definitions in the Flagstaff zoning code. So on screen, common open space, it's within a development, and it's shared by all owners and occupants. And examples on screen are Presidio in the Pines and Butterfield Apartments on Solier Avenue. So for private open space, it's private space designated for each unit or lot, and on screen has been placed at Sawmill. So the balconies there are private space required for each unit. And another example I don't have on screen today are lots within a subdivision. Usually what's common is each lot will have a private yard area that's considered private space. And then lastly, open space. Again, this is what we picture. It's great natural scenic beauty. Really what the purpose that is for is to maintain or enhance the conservation of natural or scenic resources. And we have Observatory Mesa on screen as well as Picture Canyon. So in order for staff to recommend approval of a text amendment, three findings need to be met. The first of which is the proposed amendment is consistent with and conforms to the objectives and policies of the general plan and any applicable specific plan. The second is the proposed amendment will not be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare of the city. And third and lastly, the proposed amendment is internally consistent with other applicable provisions of the zoning code. So diving into the findings, for finding number one, this text amendment is mostly clerical in nature. Again, we're ensuring consistency throughout the Flagstaff zoning code. So while the general plan has a section designated to open space, this text amendment is not exactly enacting anything from that section of the general plan. It's clerical in nature, and so this finding does not apply. For the second finding, the amendment provisions are not anticipated to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare of the city. So this finding is being met. And thirdly, the proposed amendment is internally consistent with other applicable provisions of the zoning code. Again, it's clerical in nature. We're ensuring consistency with how these three terms are being used throughout the Flagstaff zoning code, and so this finding is being met. So because this text amendment has to do with open space, it was brought to PROS. So it was brought to PROS the first time on June 26th, and then on September 25th, it was brought again. At the second meeting, PROS actually responded that they would like for us to add a new term to the Flagstaff zoning code, and that term is legally designated open space. The thought process behind this request was that they wanted to ensure that open space would be retained as open space. It will be untouched and it will be preserved. But staff feels that because with the changes that we're making to common space or common open space and private open space and clarifying that those two terms are development standards, we're separating them from open space and we're meeting this need here. So again, this text amendment was brought to Planning and Zoning Commission for a work session on October 11th and then came for a public hearing on October 25th. And at the public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously in favor of the text amendment. So to date, staff has received one public comment regarding this text amendment. That email is attached to your packet for this item. And then also staff also held an open house to discuss the text amendment on October 19th, 2023, with no opposition from the public. And so with that, Planning and Zoning Commission forwards a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the Zoning Code text amendment.
Thank you, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Council, do you have any questions before I take public comment?
This is Jim McCarthy.
Hi, Jim.
She covered in great detail what the existing definitions are. Could you review what the proposed definitions would be again?
Yep,
I did read the
absolutely.
packet, but that was a couple days ago.
Absolutely. Oh, okay, there we go.
I guess my comment is that it says private space or it says common space, but it doesn't really tell what it is. You know, I mean, it's open space of a particular type, of two particular types, but it doesn't really define what we're talking about. Common space, private space, those terms are kind of nebulous. I guess that's why we have the definition, right?
And if I may speak to that, so for common open space, within the definition, it refers to the use and enjoyment of all owners and occupants, so the idea of it's shared. For private space, it goes into detail about how a private space may be provided to each unit or lot within a development. I think what might help too is also the context for these two terms. So usually we find common space or common open space as it currently exists, as well as private open space within the Flagstaff zoning code in some of the residential zoning districts. And so within those zoning districts, for example, high density residential and medium density residential, it will ask for certain development requirements, and that's when you will find common open space. 15% of the development needs to be allocated to common open space, and then we would apply what it's asking for by referring to the definition. Does that help clarify your question?
Yeah, so if you read the definition, it's clear. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
But the term itself is kind of ambiguous.
So
Common space.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Go ahead.
I have an example on screen on a section of the code that is currently within the Flagstaff zoning code. So this falls underneath miscellaneous requirements for the medium density residential as well as high density residential zone. As you can see here, it refers to common open space. And again, this is before the new terminology has been applied. But this is
Could you expand that? Could you expand that?
Make it larger? Ooh.
Yes, it's hard to read.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Let me scroll over to that slide. But again, under miscellaneous requirements, part of Flagstaff's values is to be able to include shared spaces as well as to be able to incorporate some element of open space into a development. And so this section of that code refers to that specifically. So if we're reading through the table here, it's asking for that sort of element to be incorporated into a development. But if we're looking at this example here as we're reading through, the way that open space is being referred to goes from common open space, and then it gives development standards for common open space, and then it flits over to private open space, which in this case it very well is referring to private open space. But then in a footnote here, it refers to open space. And so there's a lack of consistency on how these terms are being used.
Okay, I'm okay for now. I'll probably study it in a little more detail before the second read. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right. Do we still have our online public comment?
Mayor, she has retracted her need to speak.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions from council, I'm going to close the public hearing and get back to the agenda. Let me see. Okay, do I have a motion to read resolution number 2023-58 by title only?
I move that we consider and adopt resolution 2023-58 and ordinance number 2023-29.
So we do have to take them separately because they have to be read separately.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 2023-58.
Read resolution, not adopt.
I retract that. And Mayor, I'd like to move to read resolution 2023-58 by title only.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council declaring as a public record that certain document filed with the city clerk and entitled PZ-23-00130 updates to zoning code open space terminology.
And can I get a motion to read ordinance number 2023-29 by title only for the first time?
Mayor, I move to read ordinance number 2023-29 by title only for the first time.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? City Clerk?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff City Code Title 10 Flagstaff Zoning Code by adopting by reference that certain document entitled PZ-23-00130 updates to zoning code open space terminology, providing for penalties, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and establishing an effective date.
Shwoo. Thank you, staff. All right, moving down to item number 11 on our regular agenda. Item number 8A, consideration and adoption of resolution number 2023-59, which is the intergovernmental agreement between Coconino County Flood Control District and the City of Flagstaff for license to use city property.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Scott Overton, Public Works Director. I'm here this evening to answer any questions or have any discussion on an IGA that we have put forward. Just about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, Coconino County Flood Control District reached out with a mutual aid request to utilize some city property being located at the Cinder Lake landfill. And this property in question is a small segment of the overall landfill footprint that will accommodate some pipe storage and some pipe fabrication for the upcoming Pipeline East mitigation projects. So we were able to support this request, crafted an IGA. You have a few exhibits within your council packet, and we're happy to say we've come to agreement with Coconino County for them to utilize this property without interference to any neighboring properties or our landfill operations, and we're, in all honesty, happy to help support the cause on Pipeline East and see this as a good partnership with our flood control district. So with that, we'd request that you approve the IGA, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have this evening.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions or comments? All right, I don't see any public comment. So I will entertain a motion to read resolution number 2023-59 by title only.
I move to read resolution number 2023-59 by title only.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Clerk?
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between Coconino County Flood Control District and the City of Flagstaff to allow the district to use city property at Cinder Lake Landfill for a pipe fabrication facility.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
Mayor, I'll move to adopt resolution number 2023-59.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Thank
you, Mr. Overton. Down to B, consideration and approval of adjustments of property development standards. Request by Roars Company, applicant for VP 66, and Woody Mountain LLC, property owner, to approve adjustments to property development standards for a 100% affordable housing development located at 2292 South Alvin Clark Boulevard. Hello and welcome.
Hello. This meeting's moving really fast, so I had to pull my presentation up. There we go. All right. Good evening. I'm Alexandra Pucciarelli, current planning manager. I'm here to present the Woody Mountain Apartments adjustment of property development standards. This is a request by Roars Company to approve the following adjustments. So we're looking for 4 adjustments to the city's zoning code. The first is a request to reduce the depth of the required jogs in the building floor plans. The code right now says that any wall of a building over 75 feet long has to be broken up, jog at least 20% of the height of that wall. The next request is to reduce the required garage door recess depth from 18 inches, which is what code requires, to 12 inches. The third is to reduce the minimum width of the parking spaces from 9 feet to 8.5. This would only be applied in areas where the applicant is proposing to put canopies with solar panels on them. And those, the columns that support the canopies are impeding a little bit on the width of those parking spaces. The fourth is a request to increase the number of parking spaces allowed between landscape islands in the parking lot. And I can go into each one in more detail as we move forward. This project is located as part of the Timber Sky development. It's kind of the northeast corner of that subdivision. Adjacent uses, we looked at Live Timber Sky and Sky Cottages to the east. To the west is more single-family residential as part of Timber Sky. To the north is the city's public works yard. The site plan was approved by staff back in May of this year. You can see I have a beautifully colored site plan showing each of these buildings. They're 3-story buildings, except for the clubhouse, which is marked A on this. There are single-story garage buildings over on the east edge of the property. There's like a dog park area in the bottom southwest corner, and then civic space, mostly along to the south of the development, as well as that sort of center circular piece. This development is helping to achieve the requirements of the Timber Sky Development Agreement. That we recently did an amendment to that agreement that called for a minimum of 190 affordable rental units, serving people with equal to or less than a 60% AMI. And this project, because it's 100% affordable units, it can take 5 or more incentives in the zoning code. Right now, administratively, they're taking a parking incentive that reduces the number of required parking spaces, a landscape incentive that reduces the amount of on-site landscaping they have to do, and then this request for the adjustment of those development standards. Well, this I already talked about. So here we have the discussion of that walls over 75 feet and wanting to jog them. The applicant is proposing jogs that vary between 5 feet and 2 feet 5 inches, but they're also proposing these awnings, these little roof elements on the side of the building that are kind of above and beyond what we would require, but they're saying that because those project out from the wall, that they're adding some of this interest and these shadow lines. That is kind of the intent of what the code was trying to do when it says you need to break up these long walls. The second being to reduce that required depth of garage doors. Again, I believe what the code's trying to do is have these shadows and make those garage doors not as prominent by making them further back within the wall. So they will be recessed, just not as deep as what code is currently requiring. Here you can see they submitted a proposal for these solar canopies. This came in after they already had their approved site plan. They came back and said, wouldn't it be great if we could have solar PV panels on our project? So all these yellow rectangles kind of on top of the parking area are all these solar canopies. So because we have these solar canopies, they have those columns. The columns, our code now says you have to measure the width of the parking space from the outside edge of any column to the center of the stripes for the parking space. Because this is kind of coming in after the fact, we don't have that required width. I am optimistic that this will not be a problem because unlike the canopies out in our parking lot, you can see the columns are all in a line and they're all kind of midpoint to front of car, as opposed to the ones that are in the back that we tend to scrape our cars up against as we go in and out of those parking spaces. And then the fourth request, right now the code says you can only have 8 parking spaces, and then we want it broken up with a landscape island or peninsula that has a tree and shrubs and ground cover on it. That doesn't really make sense when you have a solar canopy on top. The code allows you to get rid of the tree, and then why have the landscape island if there's nothing planted in it? So let's get rid of that requirement, at least for this 100% affordable housing. So to approve these adjustments, we have to meet the following findings. There's a whole list here, including being in conformance with our general plan, not being detrimental to public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare of the city, adding to public good, that it won't endanger, jeopardize, or otherwise constitute a hazard to the property or improvements to the vicinity, that it's consistent with the character of the area and the type, quality, and amenities of the development are consistent with those found in other market rate developments. Public notification is required as part of these requests. So the applicant notified all the property owners within 300 feet of the property, all homeowners associations within 1,000 feet, all persons. We keep a list of, I don't want to call them persons of interest, but people who are interested, so they get notified of projects, as well as affordable housing advocacy agencies. So we work with our coworkers in the housing section to get that list. The applicant also installed a sign on the property. So the recommendation from staff is that City Council, in accordance with the findings, and please note the applicant is here and they're going to go into a little deeper on those findings, but in the interest of not being overly repetitive, we're kind of divide and conquer tonight. So in accordance with the findings, approve the adjustments as presented and with the following conditions. One is that before the the civil plans are approved, that we'll get that revised site plan showing the final locations of all the solar canopies, their columns, the parking spaces, etc. We'd also like to see a final landscape plan showing the layout of the parking islands, how they got adjusted with the canopy. So wanting to get those items. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Before we invite the applicant up, Council, do you have any questions for staff? Councilmember Matthews?
Thank you, Mayor. So the width of the parking spaces, you were talking about avoiding hitting the columns, but how, I guess it's going to cause people when they open their doors to ding a neighbor?
I think that that will be addressed with those requirements, those conditions that staff is requesting, that we'd like to see that modified site plan that shows the exact locations of the canopies and the columns, because then we can also ask them to show the vehicle turning radius and how people are moving in and out of the space and where it's located in reference to the actual car and the car doors. I think that I have not been provided with that specific information yet, which makes sense. They're asking for the modification, I think, first before they go ahead and move forward with all the design work of those canopies.
So if this is approved tonight, then they'll come back to us or to you and then us? Or
it would just come to staff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Additional questions for staff? Councilmember Harris.
Okay, so we're going to approve, if we approve this tonight, then those recommendations come back the designs come back to you, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if we approve them tonight, and please take this in the spirit that it's given.
Yes.
What assurances do we have that they're going to meet your standards, you know, I mean, we don't want doors to be banging up against columns and all of that. So we're agreeing, if we pass this, then we're good faith?
I think if there is a majority that is concerned about the location of the columns, perhaps we include another condition that those columns are not, that we could approve the request for a narrower parking space with the condition that staff review car door swings, turning radiuses, and ensure that it's not going to be an issue. I mean, the last thing we want is like a Dukes of Hazzard thing where people have to climb out the window.
Or banging their new cars. Yeah, I just want to make sure that people can get into those spaces without having to have to be some type of Houdini or something. Okay, thank you.
Agreed.
Additional questions? All right, thank you. And now we'll welcome the applicant up. Hello.
Do you have something? I do, yes. Hello, Mayor, Council members, Lindsay Shuby with Gamage and Burnham. Thank you so much. You guys are moving right along today. This is, it is a holiday miracle. Okay, perfect. And the one nice thing about questions to staff ahead of when I get up here, I can answer them for you. So Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, thank you so much. Again, here, Woody Mountain Apartments, southeast corner of Route 66 and Alvin Clark Parkway. I actually have two representatives from Roars here, Kevin Sturgeon, who's been here before, as well as Peter. I'm here with Gamage and Burnham. Our architect is available via text if we need to text him, and our civil engineer, WLB Group, we've got representatives here as well, Brian Jorger. So hopefully we can answer all your questions. Again, Roars, founded in 2012, emerging leader in multifamily development. I think as been stated before, they do market rate, affordable, and active 55 plus. In Arizona, Roars is currently working on developments in Flagstaff, Buckeye, Casa Grande, and Maricopa. So really excited to be here and excited to be part of the Flagstaff community. Alex walked you through where this parcel is. I think we're all very familiar with Timber Sky. Again, at that hard corner is Live at Timber Sky, market rate multifamily. South of that is Sky Cottages, which is single family for rent. Outlined in blue is a proposed development here. That is block 1 of Timber Sky proper. Just south of this Roars development is 3 acres, 3.3 acres, that has been donated to Habitat for Humanity. I am permitted to say on the record, Eric is enjoying Thanksgiving with his family, but he is supportive of this application. He believes high tides raise all boats. So I'm allowed to say on the record, Eric and Habitat for Humanity are supportive of this request this evening. And and where Eric is and Habitat for Humanity is the north portion of Block 2. The balance of Timber Sky that is platted is single family market rate residential. But again, you know, as we get to talk about, this is a full diversity of housing options at this corner. And frankly, you know, like I said at the planning conference, we were able to present on this. You have a lot of jurisdictions that are very jealous of what is happening here in Flagstaff. It's a pretty cool opportunity. Again, the zoning is HR on this parcel, again, block 1 of Timber Sky. Apologies, this exhibit is outdated. As you know, right to the east is now zoned HR as well, and the corner has been annexed in to the city, but the map isn't updated yet, but it will be soon. So again, why are we here? 221 permanent affordable units. Again, in the development agreement, Vice Mayor, you didn't think we'd get over 190, and I'm very, very proud to say that we're at 221. No changes to the proposed zoning. This codified section that you guys have in Flagstaff, again, is an envy of many jurisdictions. Tucson wants to adopt this. The fact that you have a provision in your ordinance that allows 100% affordable housing to take advantage of these modifications to incentivize affordable housing, you are very unique in that you have this here. I believe you're the only jurisdiction that has this opportunity. But in this, we cannot change the zoning, the uses, the density, or the building height. We are not proposing any of those changes. You know, those are kind of the fundamental characteristics of what was approved with the zoning. What Alex was talking about in the 4 requests that we have in front of you are, you know, just kind of more of the details. Again, 221 units. My 86-year-old father, he apparently doesn't know I'm presenting right now. They are a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, 6 3-story garden-style apartments. And why I think that's important, when we talk about the jog in the building and the necessity to jog when you have more than 75 feet, the intent of that provision of the code is those big buildings along Milton, right? It's how do we make big buildings look smaller? How do we verify, how do we, you know, have more interest? Here, with the 6 buildings, as well as the 1 clubhouse, we achieve the intent of that code of interesting architecture. Again, centrally located open space and solar carports. Requests 3 and 4 are specifically to be able to achieve the solar carports. Again, when you have those kind of competing interests of the housing crisis and the sustainable goals that we're trying to have in the community, those are why we're asking for those 2. We have energy efficient units, and again, just an extension and a full diversity of housing in Timber Sky. Here are some pictures. This is what it's going to look like. Again, the intent is that if you approve these, that you're not allowing for any less quality or aesthetically pleasing architecture than you would in a market rate project. Again, here's another picture. And you see our solar carports that we have there. So request number 1, the building massing standards. Again, the intent of this code, from what I understand, and you can talk to staff, is again for those big buildings, right? We want to push and pull. In this development, we have multiple buildings. This picture illustrates what Alex was talking about. Not only do we still push and pull, just not at the same depth that's required by code, but we also have the proposed shading devices. And again, our shading devices that are not required by code, we think adds, it breaks up the plane into smaller sections and adds to, you know, interesting architecture for the building there. Request number 2, the recessed garage doors. Again, as stated by Alex, 18 inches is what's required by code. And again, it's this code provision that allows you to help incentivize affordable housing. We're talking about 6 inches. No one in the naked eye is going to be able to tell, and we're still achieving the intent of interesting architecture. Again, we're coming forward with a recommendation of support from staff. Again, we still have a recessed garage. We're just 6 inches short. Request number 3, the parking stalls. So one thing that's very interesting, Phoenix. I know you're not Phoenix, but Phoenix, a multifamily development, only requires 8.5-foot width parking. So does Tempe. So while we are asking for a 6-inch deviation from what your code is, Phoenix and Tempe, 8.5 is the standard. So again, we're not asking for something that's totally out there. Our architect did prepare an exhibit. I don't have it with me, but we will share it with Alex, that shows an SUV fitting perfectly. And again, the location of the columns are where the wheels are, not where the doors are. So we own and manage these developments. It would be very silly on our part to have columns right where the door is open, because all of our tenants would complain. So you have a commitment from us that the columns will be by the wheels, not by the doors, and an SUV will have no problem using these parking stalls even at 8.5. Parking peninsulas, again, getting back to those 2 goals, right? We've got sustainability as a goal, and we have affordable housing as a goal. And so we do have to lose a couple parking peninsulas in order to accommodate the solar. I think that's a good trade-off, but that's why we're here requesting that deviation from you. So in order to find that, or to approve, or to make a motion, or a second, or vote in favor of this modification, we have findings. Again, consistent with and conforms with the goals of the regional plan. Again, the goals of the regional plan do support a diversity of housing options. The regional plan supports affordable housing. The neighborhood and housing and urban conservation chapters support the proposed development by addressing, the needs for housing diversity stock. So the diversity of housing, again, and community design and streetscapes, we do believe that the configuration and the site plan as approved does meet those goals. Not detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare, and will add to the permanent good. Again, the redevelopment of an underutilized parcel, zoned HR, for 221 permanent affordable housing will not be detrimental. I would argue it will only be beneficial to the overall good. And even if the garage door is recessed 6 inches less, I think the public good is still okay. Does not endanger, jeopardize, or constitute a hazard to the property or improvements. Again, the redevelopment of this property, I believe, is a benefit and will not deter at all. Consistent with the character of the area. The architecture, I believe, fits in with the balance of Timber Sky, and again, builds out the Timber Sky master plan with a full array and diversity of housing options. The planned amenities are consistent with those found in similar developments that are available at market rate. Yes, we have the centrally located and expansive park, playground area, lawn for active and passive open space, the dog run, and pedestrian connectivity, the same you'd find in any market rate project. In conclusion, again, this is not a zone change. This is a multifamily residential use that is permitted, and the density is permitted at this corner. Building height is permitted by right. Again, we're moving forward to fulfill the development agreement obligation and have permanent affordable residential options, diversity of housing types, and energy efficient units. Further supports the city's affordable housing goals, as well as with the addition of solar, supports the climate action plan. City staff has reviewed and recommends approval of this proposed development, and I respectfully request approval and stand for questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions before we take public comment? Councilmember Harris.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. Just a couple of questions, just for my own clarification. For the solar panels that are going on the spaces, the parking spaces, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Harris, correct.
Okay, so if I understand solar correctly, that savings goes where in terms of what are you putting, why are you putting solar panels on top of the spaces, and where's that energy or that resource that you're saving going?
Councilmember, I did not anticipate that question. Land use questions I'm good with. Give me 1 second.
I'm just curious.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, Kevin Sturgeon, Roars Companies, 1325 Utica Avenue South, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Thanks for the time today. And just to opine a little bit on your question, so that is correct. The solar panels will be essentially on top of the carports. As kind of the owner and eventual property manager of the company, so we'll be kind of overseeing operations. The structure that we're doing is an owner-paid-all kind of utility structure. So the tenants are just kind of responsible for the rent. They're not responsible for paying and having these monthly utility bills. So kind of with that structure, it helps us work with solar consultants and designers of what is the input of, on a monthly basis of these solar panels. And so it kind of helps us from the owner's side say, okay, what do we expect each year from a utilization standpoint for the solar canopies? And so it helps kind of offset what would otherwise be a relatively expensive utility bill each month kind of utilizing that solar structure helps with, community energy efficiency requirements, but also, offsetting, potentially utility bills each month from the owner's perspective.
Utility bills for who?
From the owner, because we'll be, paying all of the utilities at the property rather than putting that on the tenants. So.
Okay, so the resources that you save with the solar is going back to you to pay utility bills.
Right. It's essentially looked at as, at a high level, as kind of a reduction in utility costs based on the efficiency of it.
Okay, and that reduction, okay, so you're paying all the utilities for those, the 221 units?
Correct.
Is that correct? So when I move in, all I'm doing is just paying you my monthly rent. Is
That's
that correct? And you're paying all the bills?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Thank you.
Additional questions, Council? Councilmember Matthew?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify on the landscape islands, I'm assuming that a landscape island, we'd be planting trees, we're not preserving, so we're not interfering with our requirements to maintain a certain percentage of trees on the property. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, correct. This does not impact our resource protection at all. It just impacts, because we'll have solar coverage, we don't have to put a tree in there, so yes, but it does not impact resource.
Thank you. And I again appreciate just the innovation of your company and ROARS, and thank you for participating and partnering with us in bringing so many units, affordable housing units, to our housing stock. So thank you, Kevin, and your company, and thank you, Lindsay, and Walter, and everybody. So.
Okay, Council, no additional questions. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to take public comment. Our first commenter is Jonathan Fegley. Did I pronounce that correctly? Whew.
So my name is Jonathan Fegley. I'm one of the people within the 300 feet of the proposed property. I do have some concerns. It's the first time, that flyer that I did receive is the first time I ever saw a plan of that corner. The main entrance is like facing the main entrance to Timber Sky. So I am concerned of congestion of that area, because with 221 units facing the main entrance to that one entryway for Timber Sky, I can see a lot of car congestion there. So that's a concern of mine. And I'm privileged to live in Timber Sky for 2 years, almost 3 years now. I was the third one in, so it was pretty lonely over there. But I do enjoy the dark sky of Timber Sky and the theme of Timber Sky. And at night, you can barely walk without a headlamp, and you can see the Milky Way. I'm fearful of losing that with such a big development going in that corner, and light pollution, especially we're so close to the Naval Observatory in Lowell. So that's a big concern of mine. And then also the aesthetic, like what I saw in the flyer, it kind of just seemed very plain, the design of the buildings, and it doesn't really match, my opinion, from what I saw, the look of Timber Sky. So those are just my concerns as being a resident. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mary McCarthy.
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this project. John's my neighbor, and I too am concerned that the first notification we got of this is that you're about to approve it. We weren't notified about your changes in May or any of that. And this is significantly different from the development that was given to us, described to us when we purchased our homes 2 or 3 years ago. One of the big changes is that this is 100% affordable housing versus what we were told would be 20% affordable housing. It was supposed to be condos and townhomes, not apartments. Which leads me to another, the core matter there. And I am a huge supporter of affordable housing and multiple use neighborhoods. I think they're vibrant and lead to a more interesting city. But the oversight of developers in this town seems to be somewhat lackadaisical, to be kind. We also are supposed to have a dog park. We're supposed to have community gardens, pickleball courts, etc. within Timber Sky. They're nowhere to be seen. And the developer has moved on and is over creating Juniper Point as we speak. And nothing's being done. So I'm concerned when the developer says, oh, trust us, we're going to do this with the parking there. We're going to make it pretty. We're not going to take down the trees and so forth. There doesn't seem to be any pushback if the developers don't do these things. There's also the increase of heavy traffic. There will need to be more trash trucks. They're going to use dumpsters. That's a different kind of noise altogether. There's public transportation. Where's everybody going to go to school? What about extra police presence? Increase of emergency services. Has there been an impact study to the dark sky community? Has there been an impact study to the environment, to public transportation, to the walkability of the neighborhood? All of this gives us the general impression that this is being pushed through without community input and without sufficient study. So at this time, until we are assured of something a little more rigorous, I would ask that you not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, can you? Can you speak to these points, specifically the dark skies and the ingress and egress?
Yes.
And also the amenities that were supposed to be part of Timber Sky, and also the traffic studies done for the overall development?
Yes. I'll do my best. You may have to remind me of all of them, especially when I start rambling. So I think it's important to remember that this parcel was rezoned as part of the entire Timber Sky subdivision. It was at that time that those impact analyses were completed. This parcel has always been envisioned as multifamily residential, and the density allowed per that zoning category. So those impact analyses would have included the maximum number of units allowed on that site. Those impact analyses would have been for water, for sewer, for traffic, and for stormwater. So hopefully that answers some of that. As far as dark sky and some of those other things, this development must still meet all those regulations that were put in place, many by the developer themselves, of Timber Sky. So they not only have to meet the city's requirements for outdoor lighting, but the additional restrictions put upon the Timber Sky development. So it will remain that same level of darkness and needing the headlamp. So as far as the amenities in Timber Sky, If I had known about this question, I maybe could have done a little more research, but the developer is still required to provide those amenities. I'm trying to remember, I feel like they did come in and submit for permits to do those amenities in that sort of common area with the pickleball and the community gardens and et cetera. They may just not have started construction of them yet, but the development as a whole will not be, they're still required to do it. So staff will hold them to that agreement that came with that rezoning. What else do we have?
I would like to ask Lindsay if she could speak to the amenities in Timber Sky.
Yeah, I may have delayed long enough that she...
Oh, I had all these notes. Yeah, Mayor, council members. Thank you very much, and thank you to Jonathan and Mary for coming out. I will say, as far as the notice, I know this has been discussed at many of the HOA meetings, and so as I'm leaving, Jonathan, Mary, I'll take your card and make sure to get you in touch with Vintage. Alex hit it on the head. All the impact studies contemplated more density at this corner, so we're not worried there. Again, dark skies, the development agreement exceeds the dark skies obligations. They are required to meet those development agreement obligations at this corner, even though it's affordable. As far as Juniper Point, that's a different developer. I believe Capstone built some of the homes in there, but Juniper Point is a different development and developer than this one. And as far as the amenities, yes, the site plan has been submitted. We're working through it. I believe they're in building permits, but again, I can make sure that Jonathan and Mary get in touch with Walter and can speak to, but the amenities are, there's an obligation for the amenities. The site plan, I believe, has been approved and the building permits are in. So they're all coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
And this might be a question for our staff. When people submit their plans and everything, how long do they have when they say they're going to put in amenities and all of that stuff? What's the time limit on that?
I think it's hard to say. Like on this development, there's so many phases and so many parts. My supervisor's on vacation, so I'm going to go a little rogue here. I do something that I fondly call holding hostage. So there will reach a point in a development where I will tell a developer, if I have concerns, I will say, I'm not approving any more certificates of occupancy until you do what you promised. So their staff does have a certain amount of leverage. And let me tell you, when a developer has sold a house and promised someone that they can move in on a certain date, when I tell them you have to do certain things, they tend to move pretty quickly. So there may not be an exact timeline, like I said, but we hold them to it. So.
Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Alex, just for clarification, when a developer is starting a new project like this, and this is a big project, it was multi-phases, different type of housing and stuff, can you just cover real quickly the notifications, like to one of the speaker's points, when they moved in, they were under an impression that this type of housing was going to go in those corners. What really happens when they're having to post notices and provide information on phase one of a very large development?
So I would imagine that when Timber Sky first came in, no one was living out there. So when they did their public notification, it was, vacant land, state land, the city owned some land. There was the Woody Mountain Campground on the corner. It was probably very limited, as opposed to, at this point, we're getting more and more people living there, more and more people who need to be aware of what's going on. But yeah, it's just sort of a frustration in timing that those people weren't living there until it got approved and were therefore not noticed in that original rezone. We did somewhat recently update code to require notification of any development agreement changes. So that used to be, there were not requirements to notice neighbors when we did those changes, so that when we did modify the affordable housing component and talked about development at this site as part of that development agreement, there was we met the required notification for that. Again, if that timing didn't work out and people weren't living in the houses at that point, they again sort of missed that opportunity.
Thank you. And then I have another question. Thank you. On the comment about the design, I haven't driven out there in a little while. So how different is the outside architecture look compared to the other housing developments around there?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, great question. Again, the only deviations that we're asking for is the depth of the garage from 12 to 18, the building jogs, and again, we're still jogging, but we also added those shade structures and we have individual buildings, and then the width of the parking stall and where the landscape islands. So all of the other design, your high quality design standards that make some of my clients pull out their hair sometimes, all of those other ones have been met, as well as HOA approval. So they've met the only deviations we're asking for are those very, very limited scopes. I would say the design matches and is intended to match the high quality of design in Timber Sky.
And the color isn't like the main houses are hunter gray and these are shocking pink or anything?
Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, correct. No shocking color.
Other questions, Council? Okay, I see that we have an online public commenter, and I'll take that now.
Thank you, Mayor. Sabrina, I have just made you a presenter. You may go ahead and address Mayor and Council. Sabrina, could you please unmute and go ahead and address Mayor and Council?
Sorry, it was dithered. So I just wanted to make the council and the mayor aware that this was state land, as Alex had mentioned. And in accordance to the state land's provisions, this is not supposed to be developed. There's still wildlife that runs that parcel, just so you're aware. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Alex, can you speak to provisions when state land is auctioned?
I'll give you my basics that the state often will auction off property. There is no stipulation that that land cannot be developed. It's actually quite common for state land to be auctioned off to private developers who then develop that property. So, do you want to add?
Mayor, council members, I feel like I'm teaching I teach in the Masters in Real Estate and Development program, and Grady Gamage was one of the original state land, I don't know, it's been a long night, but it was involved in the state land. Alex is correct that when state land goes to auction, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the state and the citizens to collect highest and best value. State land is not conservation land. It is one of the largest misconceptions. It needs to be sold for highest and best value, and all that money goes to schools, ironically in prisons. Seems a little strange, but that is how the whole state land department is set up. Everything goes to public auction, appraisal process for redevelopment for highest and best use of the property, not for conservation.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthews.
And just so you can state for the record, that land was purchased from the state. It's not, I got the impression that there was an assumption that it was still state land.
Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, to be honest, I think it was state land. I was not involved in the process at that time. However, if it was state land at one point, I can just say it was, once it's auctioned, I can tell you on the record, it is owned by Vintage Partners, has been owned by Vintage Partners for a long time, and now the individual homeowners. But there is no state land, BLM land, or any conservation land, and part of Timber Sky at this time.
Thank you. That's what I wanted you to confirm, that it's not still owned by whomever entity or government agency. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, Council. Any final comments? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lindsay, you don't have to get up, but you construed my challenge to you a couple years back because I didn't think we'd get there. I just wanted to clarify for you. I think you mistook my skepticism of gentlemen's agreements and handshake deals as skepticism that a great outcome was possible. Of course it was possible. I'm a firm believer in where there's a will, there's a way. If we can build a roundabout at Lockett and Cedar, we can do anything we put our minds to, if you ask me. Like one of the public speakers, it's just that I'm not inclined to trust the word of a developer. But I'm ecstatic that it's working out and glad I could help to incentivize the process. I have you on record as admitting to me how motivated you are to see my head shaved, so I'll take it as a win-win. And let's get that scheduled. I'd really love to be able to solve the puzzle about supporting the solar panels on the parking structures. This won't be a one-off consideration that folks are going to be wanting to do around town. So let's really plug into that and figure out what the solution is and get it right. I'd love to be able to support that outcome. And I just really want to take a moment to appreciate the public comment on the topic. I'm so glad, Jonathan and Mary, that you came out to share your concerns and to engage in the process. We always love to hear from residents of nearby developments. Your concerns are totally legitimate, and it's nice to be able to dispel any of the misconceptions that are out there, and also to address the problems that come forward that folks haven't thought of before. So thank you for that. And those are my only comments at this time. I remain very excited that we're moving forward on this. I think what we're accomplishing, I think Lindsay's right. Folks around the state and elsewhere are getting jealous of what we've been able to achieve. And let's use it as a launching pad and keep going. These amendments seem fairly minor to me. They seem doable. They seem reasonable. So,
thank you. Council, additional comments or questions? Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, I think it's come out, but just to say it again, we're not considering should this be built, should it be basically built the way it is. That was a decision that was made quite a while ago. The only thing we are considering tonight is some very minor modifications, 6 inches on parking spaces, etc. So with that in mind, I am very supportive of this proposal that's on the table tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you want to make a motion?
I would. I will move that the council affirm the staff recommendation to approve the modifications as presented with the 2 conditions that are listed on the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Thanks. All right, moving down to item number 12A, discussion items, update on Agassiz renaming process.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, it's good to see you again. Also, City Manager Clifton and the rest of city leadership and staff. And for all relatives listening in, my clans are Tachitni Ladai, and Kelachitni is my dad, and also Ashini are my paternal grandfathers, and Hashkahatzohe are my paternal grandfathers. The Ashini are my maternal grandfathers. I think I got that switched around. Today, I'm honored to, I'm Rose Tohi, Coordinator for Indigenous Initiatives with the City of Flagstaff. Today, I'm honored to introduce the Indigenous Youths of Flagstaff. They have come before Council asking for your support on a journey they embarked upon. This was to rename Agassiz Peak within the San Francisco Peaks to Omaki, a name rightfully given by the Hopi people, which means home or place of the clouds. During this journey, they met with many relatives, which means they met with many relatives, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and garnered support for the work they took on. And this includes the Agassiz family. This evening, they would like to update you on the progress and outcome of this important topic. I want to take pause right here to say that I'm so proud of them, especially today when we replanted an elder of our community that impacted this community so much, and as well as around the world. Bahi Whitethorn Sr. was replanted back into Mother Earth today. And I think he would be so proud of the youth here today and making change in our community. So without further ado, I am turning the time over to them. They will each provide a portion of the update. Mayor and Council, the Indigenous Youths of Flagstaff.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're always part of everything good.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. So real quick, Yate she tohnen nishne tabahan bashchink ashi tashiche ara na kaidene tashinale she mekai smarksine she. So real quick, as my grandmother demonstrated before me, I am near the water, born for Edgewater. My mother's father is the people's coming home, and my father's father is, wait, hold on, I got that way wrong. Excuse me. As the Vice Mayor exampled that, I retract that. Hold on. I am near the water, born for Edgewater. My mother's father is Red Bottoms people, and my father's father is the people's coming home. Okay, now that sounds right. I am Makai Smarks. I'm 22 years old. I go to school at NAU. And yeah, it's a huge delight, and as well as it's something I celebrate right now in this moment, to be able to present to you not only myself, but as well as the Indigenous youth who have partaken in this whole process that I think has taken like 3 years. But that's how long I've been a part of it. I know it's taken that much more longer. 5 years before me, when at Flagstaff High School, the Native American club there put out a press release saying that Agassiz Peak needs to be renamed because it's named after a eugenicist. And a eugenicist, if you don't know, promotes these ideas and theories that say white people are superior to everybody and every other race is inferior. Now, I like to believe that our community has definitely grown beyond that thinking that has occurred in the past. So when that particular group of young people, youth, were talking about that, bringing that up, that we need to change this particular peak that Flagstaff and surrounding communities uses as an image, as a symbol of their community, shoot, I was down with it. I'm like, oh, I totally understand. Like, we definitely do need to act upon it. So in their memory, in their legacy that they left behind, I proudly took that on with other youth that you can see standing behind me right now. We had the time and opportunity from the actions of Michelle So, another youth who was a part of that, who went into the communities, interviewed elders, and asked these questions like, what is the name of this peak right here, Agassiz Peak? And they were like, oh, Agassiz Peak? What is that? Like, I don't know what that is. And that was refreshing because they acknowledged it as their traditional names. In the Navajo community, they said, oh, that's Doko Sleed. That's the white abalone shell right there. That's how we've always known it. Hopi elder saying, oh, that particular peak, there's a story with it. That's where the house of the clouds come together. That's where you see all of these clouds from all of these places from all over the world come together and create the storms that give us life. When they come to Flagstaff, that's the only time they call it San Francisco Peaks, Agassiz Peak, Humphreys, Fremont. That's the only time they ever learn of that. You have young people who go to the high schools here in Flagstaff, and of course in surrounding communities, who are carrying that knowledge with them. Like, that's Umaki Peak right there. That's Umaki. That's not Agassiz. That's not Humphreys and Fremont. That's not San Francisco Peaks. That's Doko Sleed. But only when they're in the classroom, that's when they're taught. That's what you call it. That's what it's called now. I know that we've had these conversations for years now, and I've learned and grown as a process of those conversations. This mountain is female. For my community, we recognize it as female. And it makes so much sense because you can see all of this life that prospers around it. The plants, the trees, even the rocks, the animals, and of course, the people. We all are gravitated towards this mountain. And so did the 14 tribes that came before us. So I've learned that this mountain is a mother. She is our mother. She takes care of us. She looks out after us. She brings all these clouds and brings all of these people that become a part of our community and help build up our community. And we stand here on their legacy, and we exist because of that. So with the whole renaming of this peak from Agassiz to Umaki, I've learned that it's been more about reconciling with the past. It's not about erasing it. As much as easy as that would be to erase all that. Oh yeah, all of this negative stuff, all that bad stuff that we did to the black community, all this bad stuff that we did to racism, we'll just leave that behind. I've learned that in reconciling, it helps us acknowledge that history. That of course, people who came here, and like my dad would say, that 15 tribe that came in here and say, hey, this place is mine now. It's about acknowledging that shared history because, yeah, it's really ugly. It's bad, but then it's also beautiful. It's a part of what has shaped our community. And we get to choose to acknowledge that ugly history, that painful history, and as well as acknowledge, like, hey, we've grown, and we're taking that responsibility and that accountability that comes with leadership, that comes with saying, this is a symbol of our community. We're acknowledging that. So with the whole renaming, as we were putting in the paperwork that went to the national board and they pointed us to the Arizona State Board, we presented that to them, saying that this place is sacred, not because it's a philosophical place where we can ask questions like, what is the meaning of life? But because we've experienced it, not just spiritually, not just because I say so, but because we shared it with people. People continue to come here from all over the world, even after colonization, genocide, and assimilation. They continue to come here, plant their roots here, and call this place home. We know that they're going to look after this place, and we want to honor that. Hence why we're calling it Umaki, House of the Clouds. It's a reflection of our community, and it's an intention and as well as a responsibility that we're holding ourselves to. All those children that are going into those schools from the res, from other countries, they get to learn that history. They get to be a part of it, a part of that community, a part of that identity. And as well as a part of the work that these brilliant, awesome, inspiring people that are standing behind me. We call ourselves Indigenous Youth of Flagstaff because this is a place where we find belonging. Yeah, we may not be Indigenous to right here, but we're Indigenous from somewhere, and we're acknowledging those roots. We presented this to the state board, and thankfully to a Kaibab Paiute elder who was a former chairman. He saw that and it recognized that. The whole reason why that name change happened as fast as it did is because of that elder. It's because of the groundwork that the young people did and the way we framed it. And it's beautiful because it's exactly what we need. Now I'm going to let these young people speak because I'm sure you can hear me speak all day. I don't want to do that because I want you to hear these young people because they're the leaders who've laid that foundation down so that all of us can follow behind them. So I'm going to let Johnny Otero here speak because even though we got the name to officially change from a eugenicist to something that reflects our community, there's so much more work to do. And it's work I think we should take pride with. Like, shoot, there's a lot of ugly stuff that we still have to address, but we laid it down in a beautiful way that's reflective of our community. So I'll let Johnny remind us of the work that needs to happen so that we truly honor that name change, so we truly honor the peoples who are Indigenous and the peoples who laid down their roots here. So, Johnny, please.
Thank you, Machias, and thank you again, Council and Mayor. Again, to reiterate, as I shared before, I'm an aspiring educator. I will graduate hopefully this upcoming May, teaching in our very own FUSD school district. But this past year, alongside the youth here, instead of focusing on our studies, I've been in the streets with mi gente and Indigenous relatives gasping for air. Apona Rose, an Indigenous woman of trans experience, was assaulted by 3 men, and yet she is being criminalized. Tatum James, a 15-year-old Indigenous student, was assaulted in school by the police and her principal, yet she is being criminalized. Snowball has continued to exploit sacred native land, and the First People are being criminalized. Public service means public service, and as a collective, we want to feel served for ourselves and our communities around us at large. I got into education because of my faith into the next generation. And as Micaiah stated, the next generation is here today. And let us hear from our high school students who have seen this form of colonialism in front of them in the form of education to the mountains, to Snowball, to so much, to Agassi. And so I pass that on to the Indigenous Ambassador of Flag High.
Hello from the door in, from the door out. She'e madal benalia nishe, she'e ashihin nishle, kinsachini bashichin, ado bibatoni dasche, senatin dashanele. Talani lake 8 yazin den nasha, ado Hatzant Adashanache, Flagstaff High School de Ost She'e, Satzadayiki Yinista. Hello, my name is Madeline Benali. I am the Indigenous Ambassador representing Flagstaff High School. I am a junior there. I am Salt People Clan, born for the Red House People Clan. My maternal grandfather is Deer Spring People Clan, and my paternal grandfather is Black Shriekwood People Clan. I'm originally from Tulani Lake, Arizona, so that's me. So on Tuesday, October 21st, the Native American sponsor at Flagstaff High School, who is Daryl Marks, sorry for saying Daryl, but Machias Marks, who is Mr. Marks' son, Dakota Hunter, who is the president at Coconino High School, and myself attended to a meeting to the National Board of Geographic Names. they approved the name, changing the name of Agassiz Peaks to a Hopi name called Amalki, which you guys already heard, which means House of the Clouds. I think you may wonder why it's named after Hopi and not Navajo, Apache, Havasupai, or Wallapai, or any other tribes that reside to that mountain that call that mountain sacred. Hopi is one of the oldest Native American tribes in Arizona. They were actually here before us Navajos and other tribes. And I like to think of it like as our ancestors from a long time ago. So to give them that respect and acknowledgement, we all agreed as tribes to name it after Hopi and call it Amalki. Agassiz is known for a prominent supporter of racial segregation and white supremacy. Agassiz Peak is known as the second highest peak in Arizona. In Native American culture, it's known for us as sacred, specifically for the Navajo culture. It's a place known as to provide us with food, water, and medicine, and all living essential needs. These mountains is a part of our creation story known as Doko Slid. Doko Slid is, in our culture, was made on an abalone blanket, soil from Doko Slid, and pieces of abalone brought from the third world. So in Navajo, we have 4 worlds. We have the black world, which is our first world, the second world, the blue world, the third world, the yellow world, which is Doko Slid, the fourth world, we call it the glittering world, where we're living in right now. These are the holy people that were told to us that live in the mountains. They're called the yellow evening boy and girl, abalone shell boy and girl, yellow corn boy and girl, all kinds of yellow birds, and a mixture of water and plants. Yellow wind was made to give life to the mountain. The western mountain, the San Francisco Peaks, represents Ina, which means life. But like I said, the mountain is so important to us as indigenous people who resides that mountain and calls it sacred. This has been a dream come true to students and I who have been longing for this renaming of Agassiz Peaks. So thank you for taking your time to listen to me. So, ikiat eskwale, and hope you have a good day. Okay.
Yat shik edo shidene yat yat city in yeshe kisachini nashle chichapashi tanazani dashe auto toricini dashanele agot ego dine azanishle kitlane de k hashte auto sotit adat shanachai shama do shaja a ronda at city do dero that city wilya Flagstaff High School in Nishta. Hi, I'm Althea at City. I'm currently 17 years old and I'm a senior at Flagstaff High School, and I take the role as the Flagstaff High School's Native American Club president. And with that, I'm going to start off my speech with, today we stand in this room to bring awareness of the communal issue that many local indigenous tribes have with the name that is placed on our holy mountain. In my traditional language of Dene, we call it Dokosli, which is extremely sacred to us. It is what our prayers, our songs, and our creation stories call it. Navajo aren't the only people that hold sacredness to this mountain. There are 12 other tribes or local tribes that deem this mountain as holy. This can include Hopi, Havasupai, Yavapai, Moab, Yuzuni, Acoma, Holopai, Paiute, and multiple bands of Apache, all in which have their own individual sacredness and individuality of each of their creation stories. Having the mountain called something that doesn't have sacredness to it not only is disregarding their own importance to it, but is disregarding our own culture and our importance to it. As an indigenous youth, it's important to me to bring this issue to your attention in order to show that this issue is not only affecting our current generation, but our future generation as well. For the recent rename, we are thankful for the acknowledgement for the recent rename of Agassiz Peak to Amalki, and the student-led group that first brought this brought this to attention, which also includes Mr. Marks' son and other students that I'm able to look up to. With the topic of changing the whole San Francisco Peak to something that will match our traditional cultures will further show the inclusivity that's within our community of Flagstaff. Thank you.
Yata she'elor the nyazi yunisha, shidolna enele, tudichi nishle, tatnizani bashijin, hashkana zohadashite, tunahalin dan nasha, kintlana de shagan, cooking in a high school de inish tat, nakets da yunish tat. So sits ada shinahwe. Hello everyone, my name is Laura Nyazi, and I am representing Coconino High School's Native American Club. I am the secretary there, and it makes me really happy that we are part of a legacy and we are continuing education about colonialism and how we are willing to change it. Not forget it, but just change it for the better, and we're not forgetting it. I want to add something from my college essay, just to leave you guys here with like some education. As a Native American, my Navajo language is imagery. That's one of the beautiful things about my culture, being self-oriented. Tsehostoe, which describes a place, means the meadow between the rock. This translates to what my ancestors saw and how they interpreted their surroundings. My language is older than the United States, and it's something everyone should know about. This leads to our passion. The reason why we're here is to educate people about Indigenous youth and Indigenous advocacy. Thank you for listening to us, and yeah, thank you.
So now that you've heard it all, from being reminded of the work that we need to do to take care of the seeds that we planted here so that it continues to take care of us, our community, and as well as those who come after us, to understanding like what it means to have something that's sacred, what it means to have that relationship to that sacredness, and as well as what it means to bring that into our community and seeing how it continues to flourish within schools like Flagstaff High School, Coconino High School, and how because of that direction of inclusivity, it gives us the strength to come together in community when we need it most. As we've been listening all night when it comes to having conversations about a roundabout that may last for hours, or to have conversations about housing that is affordable and as well as accessible to everybody. Because at the end of the day, as the sun sets, we can see that the mountain turns yellow. We see it with the plants, the animals, and we also see it in our homes. When we're sitting down with our families, with those that we choose to be a part of in our family, in our community. That's what gives us life, is that connection. And the way that we introduced ourselves, as you heard, of our clans and where we come from and our languages. This is my mom, and she's right there. And this is my dad. His work is in here somewhere. This is my grandparents on my mom's side and my dad's side. And this is me. When I was little, they all took care of me so that when I get older, I'd be one to take care of them. And those sacred peaks, I carry them with me every day, everywhere I go. Class, work, helping the unsheltered relatives, creating those relationships. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. That's what gives us our identity, and that's what gives our community its identity. So with this whole renaming I wouldn't say renaming, this whole restoration of Umaki back to this peak is that invitation for healing, for that invitation of growth, and that invitation for community. So if you have any questions or any comments that you want to direct to any of us, we're here for you. But again, as the youth said, we want to thank you for taking this time to make this acknowledgement, and as well as acknowledging what we carry in our hearts, that sacredness. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you all so much. That was very moving, and I'm so grateful to you all for the work that you've put into moving this along and the time that you took to prepare your comments and come before us and tell us what this remembering means to each of you. Thank you. It means a lot to me. Council, comments? Oh. Whoa, there's a lot of C's. Lots of people want to make comments to you. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for coming and sharing this amazing news and this update with us. I want to share with you a concept that comes from my people, which is the idea of Sankofa. If you've not heard that phrase, please look it up. But what it stems from a phrase that means basically don't be afraid to look backward for what you've forgotten and bring it with you into the present. It's represented by a crane or a bird that's looking backwards with an egg on its back. And that egg represents the future. The bird is flying into our present while looking back at the past and recognizing all it's a cycle and it's all working together. To me, this process is beautifully representative of that concept. And I wrote down as I was listening to each of you, first of all, just the lovely words that I loved, Machias, you said of it not being about erasing history but reconciling it. To me, you all are the egg on the bird's back. You all are representing that beautiful future that's possible when we look back and begin that work of reconciling our past and moving it into a positive future for all people that's inclusive and engaging and recognizing of the things that we need to fix and the things that we can make better. So I am so thrilled to hear that, and I'm hoping maybe you can confirm that it was effective October 21st. That change is in effect for us. It's amazing, and it's so commendable that you have stuck with this for years and gotten it to this point. So thank you for that work, and thank you for, I think, what we all know is the fact that it's not the end of the work that you're doing, that there are other things that are of importance and other things that we can recognize and continue to do that work of moving from simple acknowledgement into action and from action into change. So thank you.
I'm getting so wrapped up, I'm forgetting that I'm supposed to be facilitating this meeting. Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I have felt like a expected grandmother when I got the news at our Indigenous Commission that this mission was accomplished, and it took the energy and perseverance of our Indigenous youth to make such a significant change or restoration back to a Native name. And I'm just emotional about it because sometimes we get so wrapped up in government work that, we just feel that things are so impossible to ever accomplish. And I've talked a lot about renaming parts of the peaks, and we've talked about it in the commission meetings. And man, when I heard this, it was so exciting. And so I'm so happy that you all came and shared what it means to you. And it is just a fresh healing beginning to know that we're moving in the right direction to honor heritage and past. And so thank you so much. Gosh, you're our generation to pave the way to make a change. So thank you so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here and offering us, I'm pretty sure in the room, everyone hope. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and your actions don't just stay here. You're making a difference for everybody in the world, honestly. And it starts with you. And your dedication to this will ripple into positive change, and I believe that. And just thank you for being here. Thank you for using your voice and being passionate about something. And look what you've done. I mean, it's amazing. You've changed something. And I just really appreciate all of your work. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris?
I just simply want to say thank you. And that seems like it's just too little, but you definitely have all of our appreciation for the work and for your commitment. And so you're definitely ones or people that others should follow, other youth. And I hope that you continue to engage. This is just your first battle. And so you will have plenty more, but you have lots of people supporting you and lots of people that you can learn from. And so never give up the struggle.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, and thank you. How do you say that? I almost had it. I forgot it.
Yeah.
That was close.
I know it's kind of hard. It took me a lot of tries to say it. So.
Well, thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your inspiration. I've spoken much on this topic in the past. I don't feel like I need to repeat my thoughts and sentiments. Just sit up here in gratitude and hope for our future. I can't think of a better way to say it. Please know that there are 3 open council seats every 2 years. Minimum age for applying is 18, I believe. And you would go to that lady right there with all the computers in front of her, Stacy Salzberg, to pull papers. We need representation from our Indigenous neighbors, and we need representation from our youth up here on this dais. I encourage you to run. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any additional comments, so just thank you so much. And Rose, you're so lucky that you get to work with these inspirational leaders. So thank you again for your time coming to speak to us this evening.
My grandma made it a point to remind me of this in the practice of being humble and having humility. As I thank you, City Council, I also want to thank the efforts and as well as the conversations that you've carried into the community. I know every time I see you guys, like even in public, it's always a nice and pleasant surprise because I'm like, oh yeah, I forget I'm a part of this community too, a part of this city. So I really want to thank you for presenting this space for this acknowledgement. And as well as that, thank you. I want to as well as thank my elders, my grandma, the Indigenous Commission, and as well as the countless people and the countless Indigenous youth who put their energy and their knowledge and their heart into this. Because without them, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation and to share the space. Because right now, I know I feel that love and I feel that appreciation to be in this space. And that's all because of these young people and the young people who go to the high schools and go to the universities who are changing the world and changing minds. So I guess you could put that on the record. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Machias. Thank you, Mr. Marks. Okay, moving on. Item number 13A, future agenda item requests. A request by Councilmember Matthews to place on a future agenda a discussion to consider designating the second Monday in October Indigenous Peoples Day for the city. We just need 2 additional council members to support this, and then we will get it scheduled on a future agenda. Okay, so, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As mentioned in a recent retreat, we're going to try to start taking efforts during these introductions of these fair items to gain clarity so we know how to best inform the ensuing discussion when it does come back. This is such an effort. Thank you for advancing the fair item. The question for you, Councilmember Matthews, as we look at the possibility of making the second Monday in October Indigenous Peoples Day, we would like clarity as to the extent of that designation. Is the vision here that this would be a city holiday to be celebrated? We take note that there are some jurisdictions, including our federal government, that still honor Columbus Day as a holiday. The city does not. Is the idea here that the second Monday in October would be an official city holiday? And thank you for letting me advance this question to you.
Thank you, City Manager. Yes, I believe and I feel very strongly that to truly honor Indigenous Peoples Day, that we take it as official holiday to where people have the time off to reflect and appreciate just the culture that we live and occupy in these lands. And so to make that significant acknowledgement would be an official city holiday.
Thank you.
So for the record, I believe that that was a unanimous thumbs up from the council for moving this forward. So thank you. Moving down to item number 14, public participation. I do not see any public participation. So moving down then to informational items 2 from Mayor, Council, and staff and future agenda item requests. Let's start down here with Councilmember Matthews.
I don't have any more at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Hey, I'd just like to take a moment of personal privilege and just thank everyone that reached out to me during our family issue. That's what I can come up with right now. So thank you all.
Vice Mayor?
I'm good. I just want to mention to the other Suns fan in the audience, I hope we beat the Trailblazers tonight, and looking forward to being at the game tomorrow night against the Warriors.
Councilmember McCarthy?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Sweet?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember House?
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember House, I'm so sorry. She wants it on the record that she made hard eye contact with me and I didn't call on her first. So can you let the record reflect that? Thank you. Last evening, Flagstaff Pride hosted a really touching evening. It was a Transgender Day of Remembrance where we read the names and stories of transgender individuals in the United States who were killed in 2023. And it was just really a lovely event, and I was honored that that I was invited to participate in that. And that is all that I have. City Manager?
Nothing additional, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. I called on Councilmember McCarthy, didn't I? Okay. I think I got all emotional. All right. We're adjourned.